Hi, we're live.
We're live.
How's it going then?
Yep, good.
I don't know about
I'm
you, but I was just gonna say that countdown always makes me feel so nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're
yeah,
almost live.
yeah.
Anyway,
It's a little extra
welcome.
today. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is, but I'm here for it. But welcome everybody. It's so fun to see familiar faces in the chat already. This is our Kadence AI launch. And I don't know about you, Ben, but this feels like it's been a long time coming. I feel like we've been talking about Kadence AI for like at least like with our community, kind of teasing people about it for like a year now. So
Yep.
I'm excited
Yep.
that we're here.
Yep.
And it definitely feels like it's time.
Yes. Yeah. It's great. It's great to be here. It's great to talk about it. It's great to talk about it as it being live. I'm also highly concerned that we will somehow screw up this live stream, seeing as how this is our first one doing it without Kathy, which is going to be, hard and sad. So I'm sure Kathy is watching, and call out to her. We love Kathy and
We love Kathy.
all that she's doing now. She's moving on to bigger and better things. So not here to help us with this, which means that hopefully we don't screw it up, and hopefully this actually like stays live the whole time.
For sure. Yeah, be prepared for it to be messy. We are super excited for what Kathy's doing, but also devastated that she's not here with us.
Yeah.
But Kathy, I think she would for sure say this. Like, she's probably the number one Kadence fan of anybody. So she will always be around, I think. And yeah, we love her so much. But we are super excited. So with Kathy leaving, we have a new person who is stepping in, and she is amazing. And we're so excited about what she's bringing to the Kadence community and just kind of this fresh insight and perspective. So Roxy, if you want to join us.
Hi.
Yay, this is Roxy. Roxy, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey, I'm Roxy. I am from New York. I've been working in startup marketing for the last 10 years, and every awesome product I've worked on has really depended on WordPress. So I've been watching the community from the sidelines for quite some time, and I'm just so excited to like be a part of one of the best products in the industry with this awesome, incredible team. Yeah, shout out to New York. Not much more to say about myself, but I'm so excited to talk about Kadence AI today. Working on this launch as like my first big project with Kadence has been magical and exciting, and the product is just so cool and really redefines, everything that we know about working on WordPress and building sites with starter templates, which was already like really fun to learn with Kadence. So yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Thanks to the community for welcoming me. It feels really great to be here.
We're super glad you're here. And hopefully you can help us not make this live stream a disaster.
Yeah. We're definitely going to be all trying to figure out how this works, because this is our first time trying to do anything together, where it felt like we got a little bit practice with Kathy. Now we're like, okay, who takes the reins now? But we'll make it.
I think everyone does know also that if it was just Ben and I, we'd end up like just somehow talking about Ben's kids, and then be like, oh wait, no, we got to get back. Because for any who don't know, Ben and I are siblings. So anyway, so I'm glad that we have somebody to help us keep us on track.
Yes.
I'll do the best I can. No promises though. So, I mean, that being said, we can start talking about Kadence AI. To the community that's here with us today, we would absolutely love to hear from you. Have you tried Kadence AI yet? Were you part of the beta group? Because that's been going on for a while. There were a lot of big updates since that beta launch. So we want to hear what you think, and we'd love to, just publicly thank you for all of your involvement and all of your bug reports and conversations and everything that's been part of this process. as mentioned, it's been a while, and this is really a cool milestone to be able to get live on stage with you and say, yeah, it's out. We're happy. We're talking about new things now.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Gilbert, who's in the comments, here to help out with any like support related questions that you have. So if you have any issues with something you're trying out in the product or just with the live stream, feel free to ask him. And we have one more person to introduce for this live stream because, yeah, it's that kind of day. So I'm really excited to introduce Zach Tirrell. He's the manager of StellarWP, which is an awesome, big WordPress brand that works on a lot of different really cool, successful brands in WordPress, LearnDash, the events calendar, and more. So I'm going to bring Zach on and let him introduce himself. Hello.
Hello. Is this the call where I talked to Ben and Hannah about Ben's kids? Is that?
Yeah, you've arrived.
Thanks for the intro, Roxy.
That's happening later.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, I'm definitely hanging around for it. Yeah, so I'm the general manager here at StellarWP, and have been sort of with Stellar since its inception, and with the events calendar specifically for this is my 9th year with the events calendar, and I think my 18th or 19th year in WordPress, which is a little bit insane, but super happy to be here, to be invited to hang out with you all on I think what's a pretty huge milestone in the life of Kadence.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Zach, he's currently overseeing a lot of the projects that Stellar's involved with, and has some insight into how AI is going to affect WordPress as a whole, and also like the products that are under the Stellar umbrella, which Kadence is one. And so having him here to talk about like, hey, we got Kadence AI out, but there's also this component to it that a lot of people don't realize is we built a lot of the back end of Kadence AI to be able to branch out into other brands that we work with, that we partner with as part of Stellar. And so that's going to be really exciting as we move forward too, and all the different ways that we can say, how do we integrate AI here and there? And just to give people that kind of that bigger vision of like, we're thinking about AI and how can it affect how we build sites in WordPress, not just using Kadence, but also you know, when you're doing things in WooCommerce, when you're doing things with events and learning management, like we want to make sure that AI is enhancing that experience. So it's going to be fun as we dive into that. But do you want to start with that question, Zach?
Yeah, I think it's a good place to start. The whole concept of where does AI fit for WordPress in general, maybe the Stellar product line more specifically, is really interesting. Last summer, we put out the first AI features in Stellar in LearnDash. So we built a course outline creator and a quiz builder for LearnDash that would make both of those tasks, which can be a little bit more time consuming and a little bit harder for a course creator to get started. So we built those features in, of course, we were just trying to get them quick to market, trying to get them into customers' hands. And our approach was, hey, you're going to have to sign up with OpenAI. You're going to have to get an API key. You're going to have to enter that in your settings, right? And that it works, right? Like the functionality works, but that user experience is certainly not ideal. And I think what Kadence has built in the back end and being able to set up this credit system that's attached to your licensing that allows you to just start using those AI features without having to do any sort of configuration or work, I think gets to the heart of where I think AI is going to give us the biggest benefit, which is getting customers and getting site creators over that initial hurdle, whatever that is. In the case of Kadence and building a website, that first hurdle is, how do I go from having this blank white web page with nothing on it to having something that feels like a web page, that it feels like my brand, it feels like a website. In the case of courses, that's more like the things that we built, but now we can use what's been built with Kadence to make easier. How do I get started outlining my course? I know what my topic is. I know I'm going to have to write a lot of course material. I'm going to dump all my knowledge into this course creation. But what's just a nice, quick way to outline? Like what should be my outline? And being able to iterate that with an AI gets people past that blank white page and on to doing the thing that they were really passionate about doing to start, and their business, their course, their event, whatever that is. Getting them into the thing that they were there to do, and not fiddling with toggles.
Yeah. There's something really powerful to getting past that white page and getting into, I can start editing. And we saw that a lot when we released starter templates, and those got really, really popular as people were like loving the fact that they didn't have to start with an empty site. They could start with something that was designed well, that they could then edit. And I think, our approach with AI starter templates and kind of the story behind it is, okay, how do we make that if that got you 50% of the way there, can we get you 80? Can we get you just that much closer to launch and that much closer to I can start really tweaking and doing the really interesting work of creating more interesting text and content versus getting lost and stuck in the I don't know how to, I wrote an about page. I wrote 2 paragraphs and it's just sitting there on a page and that looks really lame, right? We want to make that whole experience better. And so I think that as being if you think about goals for how do we implement AI into WordPress, and what are the things that we're thinking about, getting through that, what do I do first? Using AI to get you past that is such a key element that we're really trying to emphasize especially in this initial release of AI. That's really the target area. How do I get a website first? And then how do I, when I'm looking at a page, can I open up the design library and all of a sudden I can contextually pull in pieces of material and sections that are laid out that look good. So
it struck me as I was experimenting and playing around with the features over the past 8-9 months that we've been working on this, that it's kind of the death of Lorem Ipsum. The ability to put placeholder text that's actually targeted to your brand, that it's on message. Sure. It's so much less distracting, and you can certainly edit all of that. You can put it in your own voice, or even use Kadence's tools to change that voice and tone. But you feel like you're so much further down the line when you're looking at a page that you're like, yes, I buy into these colors. Yes, I like this layout. And the text is real text. It may not be final text, but it's real text. Feels really meaningful to me.
Yeah. And so we've been kind of hinting at it, but we've been working on this for over a year. It's worth just kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit to all of the people that are curious to know okay, well, what did that look like? We got resources from an agency that is part of our family of brands when you go higher up into Liquid Web. So we have resources from that came in that started working on this project of how do we create a server essentially that's going to run all of the AI commands. We need it to be able to work with OpenAI, but maybe in the future it'll work with something else. We need it to be able to be pretty easy to switch services if we decide in a year that Google Bard is just that much better, then we can make those kinds of switches. We're not married to a certain platform, although right now OpenAI certainly seems to be the best. So we have this whole infrastructure that got built. That wasn't actually mostly done by anyone on the Kadence team. That was mostly done by this partner that we have inside of Liquid Web and Stellar. And then Kadence was the okay, this is how we're going to bring this product to market. This is how we're going to think about it and look at it. And one of the biggest hurdles we ran into in that process, and the reason why I would have never dreamed it would have taken this long to get this stuff out, is we ran into AI is very hard to get consistent results from. It just wants to do its own thing. And I'm referring to it as if it's a person. It's not, obviously, it's a computer, but there's like, it does feel like that sometimes because the randomness sometimes of it's like, it will just randomly spit out like something that's incorrect. And so we
for better or for worse, right? Sometimes
Yes.
it's like that perfect work buddy that is just brainstorming with you, pushing you in all the right directions. Other times it's like, oh gosh, you're just having one of those days, aren't you? Yeah.
That's
So
real.
Ben, what would you say is the biggest thing you learned while working on AI? And talk to us more about the hurdles that you experienced during this massive project.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had to think about rebuilding a lot of the way that we were doing the design library and starter templates. So we couldn't start with any of that structure. And so we had to come up with a whole new structure. That was a big learning curve of like, how do we create websites that we're going to essentially copy? Like we need that website here, but not actually have a website anywhere with that content. It all lives in patterns. And then there's multiple stages that runs through. So, behind the scenes, when we generate a starter template, we're not pulling import data from an existing website. We're actually just saying like, hey, this homepage is going to use pattern whatever number all the way down. And then for each one of those patterns, we say it's going to have this context. And then for each one of those patterns, we also tell it what, color profile it's going to have and all of that stuff. When we pass that off and we build out that page live in your WordPress admin, and then eventually on your website. And so that whole structure was really interesting to build and think through, as well as like, how are we going to handle the response and all of the data passing between us and the AI and getting it stored locally. By far, our biggest challenge ended up being the licensing and the credit piece. And I think that's not because that's very difficult to build, but it's because we had to build something that we could handle running and without breaking anybody's like existing licensing. So we had to switch to an entirely new licensing system, which kind of changes everything with Kadence and how we sell product and all of that stuff. And then keep all of that backward compatible and then handle updates and all of that, but then also attach this whole credit system to it and the way that we worked with credits and handing out free credits and all of that. It's highly complex, but the results we're really happy with where things landed in terms of now we have a much better system, and coming soon, we're going to have a much better system for users in the back end as well in terms of like getting away from some of the limitations that we had with our existing licensing system. So that was a huge hurdle that we would have never dreamed it was going to be as big of a challenge to say, how do we take all of these existing customers, all of these existing licenses and accounts, and create a system that can do credit tracking? That was a hurdle, which is part of why it's January and we're announcing this and not last summer when we really intended to be. But
I think
the other thing too that I'll just say is like, we had always anticipated releasing without starter templates first, like just releasing the design library. And so these delays with licensing and stuff, it did enable us to say, okay, well, now we're actually going to release with starter templates, which is like just something to note. Like that's something that if you were in the beta group, you didn't have access to because we didn't have it ready yet. And now it's there.
Awesome. Great to hear about the behind the scenes process. We did get a question about how Kadence AI uses credits and how they're counted. I think the whole subject of credits, just like it was for you, Ben, is really a hurdle for a lot of people. It's confusing. It's like people aren't sure what it is or how, different quotas work for different products. So you want to maybe just touch on this quickly while we're all here?
Yeah, absolutely.
The information is on our website too, but I think it's great to just let people know what we're offering.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that there's a sense of credit scarcity. Like, I'm going to run out of credits very quickly. And we intentionally gave out more credits than we think people will use. Like, we're very generous with the credit system. And in all of our beta testing and all of the beta users, and even us personally, like, it's very, very difficult to use that many credits. So briefly, if you're generating an entire website worth of content for starter templates, that's 70 credits. And if you're just generating a line of text or a paragraph, that's 1 credit. And that's essentially it. Contextually, if you're going to go into the design library and just regenerate one context of credit of the design, that's usually between 1 and 5 credits, depending on how many prompts lives inside of each one of those. And so you don't need to remember that. The main thing is that we do specify that whenever you're generating credits. So whenever you go to hit the generate content, not generate credits, when you go to hit the generate content button, it always says how many credits it's going to cost right there. And you can see your credit balance. So I would say in general, there's been a lot of concern over running out of credits. And I would just say that's not our concern.
I know you're late.
Yay.
Hi, Kathy.
I know it's on the site, Ben, but what do they start with? How many credits does everybody get?
So for free users, we give you 250 credits because the goal is to try it out. So you can generate multiple websites and inline content, and it's a considerable amount to just use 250. If you're going to get one of our licenses, the just Kadence Blocks Pro gives you 1,200 credits. If you do the Essential Bundle, that's 4,000 credits. And if you do the full bundle, that's 8,000 credits. So those credits on all those yearly subscriptions, they renew the following year. So we're not, I would say in general, there's a lot of, I'm concerned I'm going to run out of credits. I would say don't be concerned. And we're working on a package, an add-on package that'll show up in your account page, where if you're okay, I'm a super power user and I burn through those credits, we're going to make it really cheap to buy more. The main thing is this isn't a move to try to sell credits. This is a move to protect ourselves from abuse. So the credit system needs to live there to prevent abuse. But in general, AI and pinging the AI is reasonably priced, that it's not this is something we're going to be hey, it's another $200 if you want more credits. Nothing like that. It'll be cheap and really reasonable to add more credits. So that's coming. We just haven't settled on the price and how many credits, but it'll be reasonable and not something that I would say anyone should really be that concerned about.
Yeah, we didn't even getting on the business side. We didn't even forecast any revenue from Learn-AI credits this year because we just our hope is that we kind of nailed it on the price and that it's going to work great for customers. And we won't. I mean, some will have to buy it, but I think that's the hope.
Yeah. A couple people are asking about lifetime. With lifetime, you get 16,000 credits, and those don't renew. But we also, again, don't foresee people using all 16,000. You can see your credit balance. Tons of people have been asking. I've seen it all over to check how many credits you have left. If you're in your dashboard and you go to Kadence, then home, there's now a Kadence home page in your dashboard. And then on the right, it's Kadence AI is here, something like that. And then there's a little icon button in the right corner. You can click that, and that'll tell you how many credits you have.
Yeah, we're getting that. It'll be in your My Account page as well. Yeah. And it's in a couple other places. And inside the design library, you can see your credits, or Inline, you can see your credits as well.
While we're talking about all the wonderful bundles we have, as the marketing manager, it's a great time for me to put up this, boom, we have a sale going on. Tell your friends, your family. If you're as excited as we are about Kadence AI and you want to make the most of it and get more of Kadence's awesome tools, not just AI, of course, but there's just so much to dive into with Kadence. Once you've gotten started on an awesome template, that this is your chance to experience the magic. Don't miss out. Yeah, you can get 25% off until the 25th of this month. And
nice.
Yeah. So Ben, do you want to maybe show us?
Before I do,
yeah.
let me go back to this question of like, where do we think AI is going? And just even like some, like, what are we doing on the Kadence side, or what are we thinking about future wise? Because I think as part of the launch, we got the MVP out, right? And now it's, where do we go from here? And I think too, it's interesting with Zach here to be like, where does WordPress and the rest of WordPress products go from here? So Zach, I'll let you start. What do you think WordPress and the future of AI is, and if there's anything in particular products that we're a part of that you like want to highlight, that's great.
Sure. So I think that's huge. From the second kind of ChatGPT came on the scene last year, I think it was obvious that we turned a corner on this stuff, and suddenly this content generation was something that was going to change the way we thought about this stuff. In my mind, the areas where we get the most benefit from AI is where it takes something that was otherwise sort of annoying to get started with, or where you maybe needed a buddy to brainstorm with. Roxy mentioned it as like your, like your friend that you work with that sometimes is really helpful and then sometimes is having a bad day. I personally have ChatGPT like bookmarked in my browser bar, and I reference it all the time, So as those features and those pieces get baked into the various products we use, I think having that kind of buddy in all of these sorts of things becomes really powerful. So in WordPress, I think that's where it's in that, like, getting started, taking experiences or UIs that are that have like a long learning curve or a harder getting started, and we can create a lot of knowledge-based content. We can try to teach our users how to use our software. But if we can teach an AI how to use these features, and then we can make that AI assistant really easy to interact with, we teach one robot, and then that one robot kind of becomes everybody's assistant in creating this stuff. And so I think that everybody wants to have like a junior copywriter or a junior developer kind of at their beck and call at any moment. And I think that's kind of what we have if we can harness it properly. And so there's a lot of work to do. I think it's not I think early on we were hearing a lot of like, oh my gosh, this is the death of agencies, or like people, are just, they're not going to need enthusiastic technologists. It's like, I don't think that's the case. I think
I agree.
It still requires a lot of skill to wield these tools. It still requires a good eye, good thinking about site architecture, and talking to clients about the best way to represent their brand online, or all these pieces. And the parts that get out of your way are the parts that, like, I'm not sure that everybody loves having long thought out conversations with customers about placeholder text. Like, it seems, I don't know how many times when I worked at the university 10 years ago, we would have a designer put a design in front of somebody and there would be some placeholder text in it, and you'd have an executive be like, well, I don't like that. And you're like, well, it's placeholder text. What are you talking about? So, I just think that all of that, those things where tasks that were annoying or time consuming, or you really would benefit from having, a buddy with you to help, like, that's where this stuff gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Just want to chime in. There's like this idea that artificial intelligence like takes control or something. It's totally not the case, right? I mean, it just puts you more in control, right, of your entire process and how quickly you move along. So yeah, I think that was a really great perspective there, Zach.
Yeah. I do remember having that perspective shift myself, because when we first started talking about AI, I was very much one to be like, no, hate this. This is scary. This is like iRobot, and they're going to take over. And then we were like talking about it in a podcast one day, and it just switched for me. And I was like, oh, whoa, this is actually an incredible tool. we still have full control, but like what a sweet tool that we get to use. And so since then, I've been team AI, but it took me some time.
Yeah, I love that. I think the getting started with those things that you don't want to do is going to be so helpful. Yeah. One thing that we're thinking about on the Kadence side is one of the ways that I use ChatGPT, and if you're using it, like is the feedback loop of when you ask for something. Like a lot of times, I will then go, okay, you answered that, but it wasn't actually exactly what I wanted, so I'll give it more information. And I think what's really powerful about AI is that iterative, like, okay, you gave me something back and that was pretty good, but what if we took this a little bit further and we kept building on that? And so what we're thinking about right now is, how do we do blog posts this way? How do we do pages this way? How do we take you into a wizard environment where you tell us what you're doing, we get this response from the AI, and then you say, okay, that was good, but actually X this section, I don't want that. And can we expound on this a little bit? And can we add this? It's missing this. And if we can kind of create that iterative approach with AI, that just makes it that much more helpful and that much closer to like, okay, this is really close to ready. So we're thinking about that with blog posts and with pages of like, how do we create a wizard that takes you through an iterative experience where you get to work with the AI, then rather just like one send and then back. So that, because I think one thing I see a lot, and even when you're talking about like AI with images and things like that, it's like when you ask for it to improve on something, it's usually like very good at improving on something. Even its own work, like even when it sends back something, you're like, okay, we'll make that better. It does a pretty good job of making something better. So I'm really interested to see how we can add more of that into Kadence, in terms of how can we add more of that iterative experience where you can say, okay, that was good, make it better, including like going into sections and being like, okay, I'm going to take this whole row, AI, tell me how to improve this. Show me 5-6 different ways that this could be improved, both the content and the layout. And that to me is a really interesting, like, how do we do more of that where you're like, okay, I kind of got it started, but what if I just had 5 more examples of what this looked like, and then I could choose, I actually like that one the best. Didn't expect that. That kind of iterative thing is where I think we want to be heading in terms of like how we can improve that flow of like building websites. Another really interesting area to me is AI can, we talked, Mullenweg again, State of the Word, he talked about just the ability to move your data around. And there's always been like really weird, funky ways of like, I'm going to take my content out of this and export it into a certain format. And then maybe if this new thing accepts that format or knows how to translate that, but then your end result is usually like, yeah, the text is there, but I still got to go in and do everything. Like whenever you're trying to move platforms or move systems. But what could be really interesting to me is using AI to be able to scrape websites and say, you don't have to think about moving from Wix to WordPress or whatever, but just be able to say like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to grab all the content. AI is going to know how to parse that content into some kind of a meaningful data that I can then import into, and I can get a better result, not a worse result, but a better result because it improved that website and it put it into WordPress or moved systems. And so I think that's another really interesting area for me where I'm like, what if we could use that to power even like, okay, I have an existing WordPress site, but AI, make this whole site better. And that to me is really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's in the piece that you touched on. I think that's really fascinating is some of the most magical experiences I've had with ChatGPT has been in those back and forth experiences. And so figuring out how to make our interfaces, our products give you that iterative capability and not just to like push a button, get a paragraph, push a button, get a starter template, but like, and you'll show some of this in your demo. I love the way that you get 6 starter templates that are pre-populated, but they're different and the layouts are different. And you can be like, I like this one, and then so that's like I think a flavor of that and a start of that, give people options. The same way if you're using ChatGPT, you might say, give me 10 headlines. And then you're like, I want that one. Or 10 headlines. And you're like, I like number 3, but make it, less like a listicle. And then, you get even better. So that figuring out how to do that iterative piece, I think would really unlock something special.
Yeah.
Even when we're working on our own, coming up with ideas or trying new processes, there's something called like the dip. I think there's even research that shows after 3 or 4 or 5 tries or different ideas, only then you really get the best idea. And I think just like Zach was saying before, and Ben, there's just something so hard about that blank page syndrome. It's the hardest part for people to get started because you don't have that, confidence or proof that you're on the right track. And the fact that we have a tool now to just really speed up that, tough part to get us going on the ideas that tell us, hey, I can really see this working. Hey, I really feel like, I'm on a roll here. It's a really powerful transformation.
Yeah. Well, do we want to hop into this quick demo real quick? I want to get to questions. And so I'm going to just kind of like very briefly show a little bit of this. And hopefully that even helps get some questions going.
Fantastic. You want to show us some things we haven't seen before too, I think.
Well, I'm actually not going to, but we talked about maybe doing that. I'm going to show you where we're headed, I think, with the starter templates.
Okay.
Cool. So, this I've already gone through the wizard here to look at. I've put in some information and I've picked up my pictures and I've generated content. And now I get these layouts. What we're wanting to go further here is one, create a lot more layouts, like a lot more layouts, but then also make them more flexible. So currently with each one of these, you can import products. And what we're wanting to be able to do is to say, okay, it doesn't matter which layout you have. If you're a learning management system, you can use any layout and we're going to set that up for learning management. And if you're, wanting to do events, we're going to set that up for events. And if you're wanting to do donations, or if you're, nonprofit, like we're going to add some of those things where we add in that extra stuff that helps you in terms of like, if you're selling a product, we're already set up for that, where you can go in, you can go look, this section exists with products. I can go into the next view and say, like, I want to import example products. That's something we're going to do throughout. So as we go further with this whole system, expect more layouts, expect the ability to kind of filter through layouts based on certain types of things, of like what you want to see on that homepage. And then expect more options as you're going through for content, where you can say, there'll be more pages per layout and there will be more things that you'll be able to enable in terms of like, I want to have events on this site, and we'll put those events in and we'll even add the sections for that event stuff or learning management stuff or whatever. So that's like the exciting part. But if you haven't watched the demo video, then this is all new, but essentially you have an ability to look at layouts, choose layouts, define colors, define fonts, see how that appears, go into each layout and see what kind of pages they come with. You can scroll through the pages. When you've got one that you want, you can jump right into the finish and launch. It goes through a different system than we previously had in starter templates, where we took basically an existing website and we copied that locally, which required a lot more resources on your server and a lot more dependability on your server being able to handle all of that. This system is much smoother. It's much faster at being able to drop stuff in. Of course, live demo, and I have an error. I'm not even gonna look at what that is. So yeah, normally you wouldn't have an error. And it looks like what happened here is the theme settings didn't import properly, which is fine. I will go and figure out what's going on with that in a minute. But essentially, as you go through, you'll be able to build out these starter sites and then jump right into pages and start editing away, like what we talked about before with design library, being able to open this up and quickly find sections of content that are going to look good on your page where you're just pointing and clicking and you're not thinking about whether or not, and I'm not doing this with AI, you're not thinking about, I need to build out a certain section. You're thinking about, I just want to pick something that looks right and that fits what I'm going for, and then I can kind of iterate on that. So, questions? They are.
Glad we figured that out.
Yeah.
Ben, while we wait for questions, the starter templates, all that stuff is like amazing, and it's definitely the most complicated stuff we did. Do we also have some inline copy? Like,
yeah. So I didn't go through the whole demo, but like inline, you can jump into each section, and here I can ask the AI to do certain things. So if I want it to improve this or make it longer or shorter or simplify it or change the tone, I mean, make it more engaging. So join the adventure. It's telling me that's the most engaging it can be, I guess. What happens if we say make it funny? This is where the AI in
doesn't
the
have a
like
good sense of humor.
iterative approach of like, okay, that's not going to work. Let's try, this is probably not enough text to do something with where it's going to be really interesting. And this is where like context is like giving the AI more context about what you're doing is really helpful. And can go a long way in terms of like how you want to do this. So what can be really interesting is just to, if we clear that out, just to ask the thing to edit this. So if join the adventure is not what you want, you can say, write a title about joining our newsletter and why that's going to be so good for finding out about craft coffees that we're doing. And that can be a much more interesting thing to the AI. I missed that question that popped up, or what was on a different screen.
It was just a little bit of praise.
Oh.
No worries. Someone did ask, I was thinking maybe you could show something that relates to this question from Kenneth. Am I able to generate a list of pages and have the AI generate content for each page? So that relates to one of the steps in like our customize wizard, right? Where you get to, or in the design library, all the different pages you get to choose from.
Yeah, so there will be like pages here, and this is an area we're like continuing to work on a lot, where you'll be able to come in and say, I want to see some example about pages, and you can see some different layouts, and you can see that in like dark mode and light mode. And this is going to inherit your theme colors. So there's things like that where you can go through different, if you're like, I just want to see a whole page and start from there, like you can do that for sure. Or you can approach it from a patterns perspective of like, I want to, start with a value proposition or a call to action section, and maybe I want that to be hero section. Oh, that's not right. Hero would be like a welcome and then a hero. And you could start building out a page like that where you go, okay, I'm going to use hero 2021, and then the next section might be a value proposition, And there you might say, okay, I want to use a media and text. And you can kind of go through and iteratively build out your page.
Fantastic.
There's a question too that came in about how to limit usage of AI to client sites. So if you're a small agency, freelancer, whatever, and you're building sites for clients and you want to be able to prevent them from using your credits or using AI on their site for whatever reason, we did in the latest update add a way that you can set disable AI in the config file, which will essentially just disable all this. So you can definitely do that, and then they won't have access to using any of your AI stuff. It's also worth noting that if you don't activate the account, they can't use your AI stuff either. But in a situation where like you want to build up their site using AI and then you want to pass it off, but you don't want them to have the access to the AI stuff, you can disable it in the config file.
Yeah, awesome.
Love that.
We've got a question too about Kadence AI generated content and SEO. So do you want to maybe show us about the smart keywords or talk about it and how that's going to help with SEO content?
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes down to SEO, like the content on your site is going to be the biggest factor in terms of what you can control. I think in overall SEO, the links to your site is going to be the biggest factor. But in terms of like when you're building out a page, you want to make sure that it's got good content. When we build out these patterns, we're sending the keywords that are part of that wizard to OpenAI to then generate that text. So we're sending in, this information you're about, which is a key factor for sure, and then which keywords you have here. So it's not super helpful at being like, I want this page to have these specific keywords this many times. Some of that stuff that is debatable how well that works anyway, but like that we're going to work through with the page wizard, where we go more iterative and we say this particular page, these keywords are important, versus like this is more about building you content for your whole site that you're going to use at random different places. That's going to be using your like site-wide keywords. If you're like, I'm really interested in creating a blog post that's going to trigger on these keywords in a search engine or a special page, that's where like the page wizard would come in, where you'll be able to say like, this blog post is not about, whatever we got here, craft coffee and coffee roasting. This blog post is about brewing using a Chemex, like those specific things. And you want that to show up in your content. That'll be how we do that, which is like coming.
That's awesome. I feel like we get a lot of questions about AI in other languages. When will that be available?
We're hoping that's available in the next 2 weeks, but it might be 3.
Cool.
Kind of depends on doing some final trial and testing. But yeah, there'll be basically just a new setting inside of your area here where you'll set the language, and we'll expose that based on what your site settings are, but you'll be able to change it here.
Cool.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how that all adds and expands what people are using it for sure.
Yeah. And how precise it is in other languages will be interesting to see.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so far from our testing, it looks good, but it's still just like we just saw in the demo, like it's still an AI that isn't perfect, and it's not always going to be perfect. But if it gets you a lot closer and it gets you thinking like, this makes me think of what I might want to put here.
Yeah.
Then that's just helping out so much.
Totally. It's huge.
Yeah. Ben, we also got a few questions about where you're going with this. What's your thought process and the vision for, what's next in AI? Maybe a good place to start is with a specific question we got about starter templates. So someone, the no and how, asked, will there be new starter templates with greater AI functionality, or will it work fully with existing starter templates? Thanks.
Yeah, so there'll be new ones. The existing starter template library that we have that we basically put a hold on last year, one, because it had 90 different templates in it, which is a lot, but also because the format for all of that, the way that we were storing the data was in all those sites exist, and you were just kind of copying that data down. And now we're breaking things into sections and thinking about each section and how we're going to add content to those sections. So that has changed, and that means that all the new AI layouts that we're going to present are going to be different and updated. And there's a couple things we're looking at that too, like making sure that all those patterns are more accessible and out the gate, so they come in already with more accessibility in mind in terms of alt text on the images and the correct, markup, where we're not doing things like having an H6 sitting alone somewhere. So that's all being improved and will be added to. So like our starter template AI library, if you will grow significantly in the coming months as we begin to create new, essentially, layouts that are, I would think, much more flexible and much better for the end user, because we're not thinking about them in this tremendously niche way, but we're thinking about them in a way that's much easier for you to be like, oh, these images are going to go in here, and I don't have to go and, get a graphic designer to build the graphics that are going to work for this.
Great. We have a couple other awesome questions. I'm just going to bring them up on screen here, Ben, if you want to tackle it. From Jake.
Hi, Jake.
Yes. I'm trying to figure out how to do this, Jake. And I think I have some like good ideas for it. And essentially what that means is that third-party cloud library creators will have to just put in placeholder text that we define, and then we'll be able to do all the magic on the import and stuff. So this is something I definitely want to implement. I am very curious too as to how creators that are doing things like child themes and stuff, where they want to go and what would make their experience better in terms of like their customer base, especially when we think about how a lot of them are niching into certain areas that Kadence just isn't. We're going to try to be all things to all people in general. And then there's really interesting, like if you're in a niche, how do we better serve you to serve that niche? And so that in terms of like AI and stuff is really interesting. So yeah, I've started having some of those conversations, and I'm wanting to do more. The main thing we need to do to make this work first is get all of our docs and placeholder stuff out so that content creators that are doing third-party libraries can go in and reference stuff and say, okay, this is how I build a section that will allow that AI replace. I don't know that AI is going to improve the results of like performance. What can improve the performance is that our patterns are getting better as Kadence gets better. And so our new pattern library, which was all mostly built last year, some even into this year, it's now got over 600 different patterns in it. And those patterns are just built with modern thinking and more performant way than previously. Part of it is because Kadence got better. We added more tools like flex layout controls inside of sections that allow you to do some of the things that required more nesting. You don't need as much nesting now. So we can improve things a little bit there. It's all very slight improvements when it comes to actual performance of your speed.
Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you, but I thought Peter's point was really nice to add to the same topic.
Yeah.
Accessibility is really important in performance in a way. Definitely something to call out for overall reason to use Kadence.
Yeah. And
on that note, Ben, when we pull in a pattern, an AI generated pattern and placeholder image, well, not placeholder images, but AI pulled in images, are we also generating like alt text and that sort of thing for those images as well?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, so they come in with,
nobody loves writing alt text for images, but in terms of tasks to take off your to-do list.
Yes, so those images will come in with alt text, and they'll also come in with the image title changing to be something actually like more SEO friendly than,
Interesting.
bunch of numbers and pixel image, yada, yada, yada. It'll be an actual title that is good for SEO.
So an SEO and accessibility win there.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's like, we're really trying to think through, like part of the wizard when you're choosing custom colors is we kind of identify like, hey, that color is not going to be great for accessibility. We're trying to expose that in a lot more places as well. So that way the patterns are coming with much better contrast ratios already versus like, we had some questionable color choices in some of our older starter templates, which we've had some accessibility experts alert us to, and we're fixing that too. Like we're not saying like, hey, those are bad. We're just saying we're going to improve. We're going to fix those. We're also going to improve on how we go about this and how we help people make sure that they're building accessibility friendly sites.
Got another question here from Jason about languages. Ben, do you have any thoughts on this point about setting language on a per block basis for a couple of different use cases?
We don't have a path for that without like generating all your content in one language and then generating another. We have toyed around with inline editing, allow you to translate text. We actually have the back end built for that, but we didn't expose it on the front end because I felt like it would be a little bit unused and confusing to be like, because it's not the same as like a multilingual website where you're like, okay, I'm actually building this page in one language where I'm going to use my AI tool, and then I'm going to translate that using a multilingual plugin, which is usually going to do that translation for you, or if not, help you along the way. And it's going to be usually in a different interface than the block editor. And so for that, having a like translate this text to another language isn't all that helpful. But to Jason's point, maybe there's times where you would do it for other reasons than like, I want to set up a whole multilingual website, in which case like we have the technology certainly, and AI is very good at it to be like, translate this text into another language. So we could look at exposing that if that's a feature request we see a lot of.
Awesome. I think we got one more question here that Ben can answer. Will the AI credits you can buy be subscription-based or one-time purchase?
There'll be one-time purchase and there'll be lifetime. So the way that works is you'll run out of any credits that would renew. So let's say you've got a yearly license to the full bundle and you want to buy some extra credits. You can buy those extra credits. You can use out the ones that are in your yearly. Those will go first. And then it'll use your extra lifetime credits. If you don't run out of those and your subscription renews and now you have credits again, those will get stored and you won't use them until you run out of the ones that do renew. So again, we are not in the game of like, let's see how much money we can make by selling credits. That's not even what it's about. It's literally like, we just have to make sure that we're protecting ourselves from abuse, but we want people to use it and we want the overall experience of using Kadence to be improved, which is why we would keep. So yeah, we'll have it. It'll be a one-time and it'll work slick for sure.
Very cool. Very exciting. very bright future for Kadence, for Stellar. This has been really fun. If there are any other questions that we'd like to answer, we can do it as we wrap up. I also pulled this quote from the beginning of our chat that I just wanted to do this fun thing with, because I loved it. The death of Lorem Ipsom. I think that's a really nice way to just conclude about the amazing potential of this huge project that's been going on for a year. I mean, wow, really huge kudos to all of you.
It's been a ride.
Yeah. How do you feel now that it's done, Ben? I mean,
well, it's out. It's never done.
Of course.
If you work on product,
done
that's
is relative.
It's done is like out is like, yeah, it's out, but it's like, oh, but I want to do this. And we run into things. Last weekend we had an emergency text, me and Zach and others were going, hey, we ran out of credits on OpenAI. We need to change some stuff. Who's got access to this? Like, we're always going to be improving. Yeah. And that is the thing, like with product development, is you just don't ever get to arrive as much as you want to arrive at the it's just, you never do. And things change, and you got to fix things when they change, and you got to improve things when they come up. So yeah, but I'm very excited that this is like out to customers, and now we get to be in the very much the improve stage, and the how do we take this technology and go that much further with it?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I feel excited about it. It's coming from somebody who is in our community and answers many, many questions about when is it coming? When is it coming? When is it coming? So it feels very fun that it's here, and it is very, very exciting, and it's been so fun to work with. Like, it really is super, super fun to use. So it's an exciting time.
Definitely. It's great seeing all this support from the community in the chat here. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, Ben, Zach, take a look. Well deserved. All right. Well, thanks, everyone, for being here. Let's wrap this up and get back to all this awesome, tough, tricky development work that's waiting for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me as a guest today.
Glad you're here, Zach.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me too. First of many.
Yay. She did great. You guys, we didn't even nothing bad happened. So major kudos to Roxy. We really are super excited to have her. We searched through many, many, many amazing people who just were not the right fit. And we're super, super happy to have Roxy here. So
yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Exciting times. Yeah.
I feel like the lucky one, truly. Thanks.
We're fun.
Oh, yeah. We do great work. Yeah, it's the best combo.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to wrap this up with our brand. You ready? Say goodbye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Great job.